Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 14th episode of the AI Healthcare Podcast. I'm your host, Dylan Reed, and today we are joined with my friend Brittany Cassin, who is the co founder and CEO of DigiCARE Realized, global consortium member of Social Impact Partners, and demonstration launch partner and founding team member of the Brain Watch Coalition, and the CEOI work group for blood based biomarkers. Thank you for your time, Brittany.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Dylan.
And what made you become interested in brain health?
Oh gosh, such a great question. So by background, I'll kind of set the stage a little bit. Is I have over 20 years of healthcare commercialization experience, and a lot of that has been actually working for life science manufacturers, so basically pharmaceutical companies.
Mhm.
But really, what kind of sparked my interest was in brain health. Was I actually was part of the team that commercialized the first ever digital medicine system approved by the FDA back in 2017. And this product was actually focused on conditions of serious mental illness, so schizophrenia, bipolar, major depressive disorder. And one of the things that's really kind of interesting, and I do think this is something that you'll find across many founders or those of us interested in brain health, is a little bit of our own lived experience kind of shines through. So one of the things that I'll share is that while I was working on the program, I really felt that if the technology was available for my family, it would have made a big difference. So my own uncle actually suffers from a form of serious mental illness, and the truth is, I've seen firsthand that my family wasn't equipped to deal with the severity of his disease.
Mhm.
And it was something where they didn't really understand how to get him the access to healthcare, or even have that comfortable level of talking about some of the challenges around brain health or even some of these diseases. And I think there's a lot of shame and stigma that happens. And
Mhm.
I'd love to say that, in my family's experience, it actually ended more positively, but it really didn't. It was really more representative of what we hear. And what we hear and know is that the US jail and prison system tends to be the best healthcare for those impacted by serious mental illness. And so I think for me, what really drove my own interest in brain health is just really recognizing the importance that we need to really focus on and being intentional for treatments or cures, or even using technology to really make the needed advancements. So that way, those that are living with a diagnosis
Mhm.
or their family actually have the resources to better help support these individuals.
Awesome. And what you just said kind of bled into my next question perfectly. So what was originally understood about brain health, let's just say like even 15 to 10 years ago?
Yeah, I think, one of the things that I think is helpful to contextualize, even maybe even my response, is I'll give you an example when it comes to Alzheimer's disease and related dementia. If you look at that, we 20 years ago, I want to say that's when we kind of had like the first approved like symptomatic treatments, but we didn't really understand the pathology of Alzheimer's disease. And I also think when you kind of look at it, we're very reactive. And so
Mhm.
we've been identifying, I would say, these diseases or diagnosing when they tend to be later stage. And so when you kind of look at even the tools what clinicians or providers are using, is they're using like clinical interview or observation
Mhm.
and even paper-based tools to really assess and interview
Mhm.
individuals when it comes to their cognitive assessment. And so the reason why I frame it like this is, can you imagine that the organ involved, the brain, is actually the organ reporting this data that's informing providers and doctors of their cognitive status. And as you can imagine, that's not a really data-driven approach to
Mm,
really assess true cognitive status. And so I think when to your point about the history,
mm,
I think that we actually have been using very antiquated approaches to really identifying these diseases, and I do think some of that has kind of stinted some of the advancements. But this year has been a really exciting year for some of the breakthroughs in treatments. So I do think that there's a lot of shift in how we can modernize these diseases.
mhm. And kind of going back to kind of the organization that you're a co-founder and CEO of, DigiCARE Realized, so it's an AI technology firm to modernize care. So the initial focus is Alzheimer's and then other related forms of dementia. And how do you see DigiCARE Realized playing a role in care management for Alzheimer's and related dementia moving forward?
Yeah, so one of the things I really think about is like the purpose of our organization is really better serving large health systems or other systems of care to really do a better job of understanding their cognitive status of their entire network. And
Mm,
so by using technology that we've developed and licensed out of Indiana University, what we're able to do is partner up with a health system, and
mhm,
we deploy our technology, which basically is a clinically validated machine learning algorithm that combs through patient health records.
mm,
What's very unique about our model is that we've trained it also in natural language, which means it's reviewing the vast medical notes that are found in these records. And it also includes a structured data. So we're looking at medications, diagnosis codes, and demographics. And what we're seeing is that when you power these four modalities together, we're able to produce a almost 80% performance accuracy in identifying unrecognized forms of dementia. But what's really unique is that we have a predictive factor.
mm,
So this includes a prediction horizon of 1 year. Now, why this is kind of all so important is when you think about where we are today
mhm,
and primary care, we know minutes matter, and
mhm,
they don't necessarily have the time to spend in preparation reviewing all of the patient history, because we know that they're also going into conversations and they're talking about other comorbidities.
mm,
And so being able to process this data and then provide that appropriate decision intelligence so that way clinicians can have more effective conversations regarding brain health with their patients is really the focus and opportunity of how we want to use AI and better serve these systems of care.
yeah. Kind of reminds me of the old saying, you can't read people's mind, but kind of what you were describing, it seems like you literally can read people's minds with your technology.
Yeah, it's I think what it goes to show is that all of us in our patient health records are almost leaving these digital biomarkers. And if you
Mm,
process this data through machine learning, we're able to identify those patterns indicative of diagnosed cases. And
mm,
so to your point, we're now shifting from that subjective approach that I kind of mentioned earlier and creating more of that objective approach.
mhm. And where do you see the role of artificial intelligence playing in brain health overall?
I think really what I would love is for us to be very intentional in a couple areas with brain health. The first is to shift away from being reactive and being more proactive. I think we know when it comes to brain health in general, a lot of the diseases are life course diseases.
Hmm.
So us being able to make healthier interventions earlier, I think is so key. The other thing that I would love to see with AI is to close gaps in care. So I'll share a story. My own grandmother actually was Spanish only speaking. So unless her doctor spoke Spanish, she wouldn't get a cognitive assessment that day. And in the use case of Alzheimer's disease and other forms of dementia, what you actually start to see is higher incidences of communities of color, and that includes African Americans and Hispanics. And so where what I really would love is how the AI can actually create more equitable care in where it matters most.
Hmm. And before hopping on, you and I were discussing off air, kind of the demographics of co-founders, specifically in digital health space, and kind of what Wall Street is seeing in New York. Could you kind of describe that a little bit more?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things, and I share this because as in my own founder journey and as someone who's kind of transitioned to a founder, I didn't necessarily know this information or appreciate it as much. But now that I'm, as like a female Hispanic founder, I'm very much aware of the fact that when it comes to venture funding, only 2% is going to female and minority founders. And I think that the thing that I would just raise is that we probably need to do a better job diversifying some of that investment, because when we're starting to see the importance of equitable healthcare, we need to really understand what we're talking about and how do we reach different communities in a way that builds trust and actually fosters accessibility and accounts also for different determinants of health, whether they're social or just other factors. So that way, I think as a country, we really are making sure that we're not leaving those behind, especially when it comes to healthcare.
Hmm. And just kind of, it seems like what you and I were discussing, business and public policy kind of go hand in hand nowadays, specifically in the digital health space.
Absolutely. I mean, I think one of the things that I look at it is, a lot of the shift when it comes to business, I think is really around the innovation of solving problems.
Hmm.
And what's so great is that we have really this like ignited group of entrepreneurs and founders that are really using their expertise and drive to solve these problems. But what I think that the opportunity for different venture funding, or even from a policy standpoint, when we're thinking about supporting or catalyzing the economy with some of these small businesses, is really being intentional about fostering diversity across these founders. Because I think what that really starts to do is create that competitive advantage and also make sure we're representing maybe solutions that really reach all communities.
Hmm. And what is one particular area in AI brain health, or just kind of overall AI healthcare policy, that Congress or other elected officials should become more knowledgeable about?
It's I think what I'm actually really optimistic about the efforts right now that we are seeing, and it's happening on a daily basis
Mhm.
of, just efforts for responsible AI implementation. And I do think that what we want to be able to do is, encourage things that make sense in terms of building trust with these technologies,
Mhm.
transparency around these technologies, and also most important is like what is the meaningful outcome that
Mhm.
we're really looking to drive. And so I do think that there's a lot of activity, which it's good. I just hope that we continue to drive initiatives that further responsible implementation of this technology.
Mhm. And where would you like to see DigiCare realized in that conversation?
I think the big thing when it comes to these efforts.
Mhm.
And where I'd love DigiCARE to play a role is to really be one of the pioneers leading what it looks like for responsible implementation in healthcare and really focusing on sustainable adoption. I think one of the things that comes in, especially with healthcare, is what does it really look like for patient consent? What are the ethics in terms of understanding the risk stratification and then communicating that to a patient to take action?
Mhm.
I also think it's so important for us to be looking at how we can responsibly help health systems implement these so that way we can support the outcomes that we want, like, for example, in like value-based care. I think at the end of the day, um, what I really would love is for DigiCare to be part of the conversation where we may be working with health systems of all sizes, of all types, where we can work with the sophisticated academic systems, and we can also work with small community systems. So that way, this technology doesn't skew to those systems that are able to afford it, or more technologically advanced.
Mhm.
So really, I'd love to be pioneering a lot of what a responsible implementation looks like across all systems of care.
Mhm. And you bring up actually an interesting point because from what I've read, and I'm assuming from what you've also seen, it seems like when it comes to mental health and artificial intelligence, it seems that it hasn't the integration of the two entities hasn't been as smooth as people have expected. And is if you don't mind me asking, what is
Sure.
the reasoning for that? Is it because the brain is such a complex organ to understand as is, or is it kind of operational, kind of on the organization side?
I think it can be all the above. What I would just say, and what I've learned is use case matters.
Hmm.
Um, Really understanding the problem that you're trying to solve. So for example, our technology works really well in the use case of dementia. But sometimes if you start to look at, like, let's say, you were mentioning mental health. Well, we also know there's a lot of different behaviors that sometimes those individuals have, where they go to different fragmented systems to get care treated. And therefore, their patient health record may not be uh, I would say, a cohesive collection of their health history. And so sometimes methodologies or technologies like AI or machine learning may not necessarily replicate the same way as it would in another use case. So I do think that one of the big things when it comes to technology is for us to make sure that we really understand the use case and take into all those factors, because they kind of play a role in its ability to generalize and solve the problems that we're tasked to solve.
Hmm. And it's interesting because what might work. I'm going to use New York City as an example, but what might work in the borough of Brooklyn might not necessarily work for the borough of Manhattan. So it's kind of important to kind of take those kind of geographic considerations too as well when you're measuring and analyzing mental health statistics in particular populations.
Absolutely. And to build off of your point, it's obviously very different if you're looking at like an urban or even more of a rural setting where geographically you have these systems spread out. And so that becomes a really great opportunity to kind of close the gaps. But to your point, really understanding the broad patient population that health system or network is serving is so critical.
Yeah, because I think the last time I checked, there's close to 400 million people now in the United States. So, that's a whole, you can like just analyze specific populations in specific parts of the country if you really wanted to when it comes to mental health.
Absolutely. I mean, to your point, like a big aspirational vision would be like, how great if every person had their own brain health action plan.
Mhm.
Maybe that should be a good goal when you ask me, "Where do I see the role of DigiCARE realized?" Maybe that's what we should commit it to.
Mhm.
Every person in the United States has a brain health action plan.
Mhm. Yeah, no, that it's something that, a brain health action plan, that's something that I've actually never heard anyone say before. So I think, have you coined it yet?
I don't not trademarked it, no, but, and I'm kind of okay with that because I think one of the things that I do believe is we do need to have healthier, conversations around brain health, and so if every single company focused in brain conditions, and they all started to provide solutions that better supported a brain health action plan that
Mhm.
meets the needs of individual people, then yeah, I'm happy to share that terminology.
And where can people find more about you, Brittany?
Oh gosh, definitely on our website, digicarerealize.com. And also I'm very active on LinkedIn and sharing all of our updates real time because I think there's something to be said about everyone kind of being part of our progress since brain health is such a key area of focus. So yeah, follow me on LinkedIn.
Okay, awesome. And thank you again. And do not forget to hit the like button and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Podcast episodes are also available on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And do not forget to check out my newsletter, the AI Healthcare Report, on LinkedIn. This is Dylan Reed signing off. Thank you so much again, Brittany.